there, welcome back to my channel. My name is Regina, and in this video I'm going to show you guys how I make my 2-ingredient seed starting mix. But before we get into it, remember, as you're watching this video, once you get to that point where you're like, you know what, I'm enjoying this, I like this, I am learning something, then please go ahead and click that like button. That is a free way that you can support the channel and help this video get out to more gardeners, which I would greatly appreciate. Now, of course, if you'd like more gardening content, go ahead and hit that subscribe button so that you can subscribe to my channel and hit the notification bell so that you'll be notified every time I upload a video. Now, let's get into it. Okay, so if you start seeds and you start more than, 10 or 15 or so, then you'll start to see that that seed starting mix that you purchase can get pretty expensive. It's already not cheap, and those bags don't really go very far. So when I first started starting a significant amount of seeds for my garden, I realized that seed starting mix was gonna break me, so I had to figure something out. I looked at content from other creators, I read articles, and from that, I kind of figured out what I wanted to do for mine, the way I wanted to try it. And so what I use in my seed starting mix, I like to keep it simple. Lots of people use other things, but I realize that it's just easier and simpler and cheaper if I stick to just these 2 ingredients. So I make my seed starting mix with peat moss, or you can use coco coir, and vermiculite. And instead of vermiculite, you can use perlite. I have used that before when vermiculite was hard to find, but I just prefer the texture when I use vermiculite. But it seems that the perlite peat moss mix seems to work pretty much the same. Now, with these 2 ingredients, you can make a whole lot of seed starting mix for very, very cheap. You can get a big 3 cubic foot condensed cube of peat moss for like $10. And the vermiculite varies, but I want to say the most recent bags I purchased were $5 or $5.97 at Walmart, but you can find it at, home improvement stores, etc. It just depends on where you get it. But you can use that and make yourself enough soil to, I started more than 100 seedlings this past spring, and I didn't use more than 1 cube of the peat moss. So you can make quite a bit of mix with it. All right, so the way that I make my mix, I use 3 parts peat moss per 1 part vermiculite. So the way I measure it, I just use whatever type of scooper or bowl, whatever I have on hand, because it's the ratio that's important. It doesn't matter what size container you use, as long as you use the same size to measure both items. So I scoop in my peat moss, and then I add my vermiculite. And if I want to make a larger batch, then I'll repeat that and do 3 again, and then 1 more, or 6 and then 2, because math's not that hard. And then once I have that mixed, Then I add boiling water. I do that, one, because you always want to pre-moisten your soil, especially if it has peat moss, because peat, it actually takes a little bit for the water to break the surface and actually absorb into the peat. So it's a lot harder to do that if you've already planted seeds in it. It's gonna, like, the water will at first just kind of like lay on top of them, and then eventually it'll soak in. So it's a lot better to start seeds with pre-moistened soil. So that's reason number one. And the second reason you want to do it is because sometimes you'll find, like, insect, especially fungus gnat eggs, may be inside of the peat. And you do not want to have to deal with those in your seedlings. Like, that's something that, you know, it happens to the best of us. I do have a video on how to get rid of them, but prevention, as they say, is what an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. And definitely when it comes to fungus gnats. So instead of just mixing with regular water, I use boiling water to moisten everything. So depending on how much I make, that determines how much boiling water I'll use. And then I make sure I mix that in. And then I let this lid sit on it, you know, for about 30 minutes or so, so the steam can completely penetrate and kill anything that might be living in that peat. Once that's done, the boiling water has been mixed in, everything has sat for a while, then I'll take the lid off and just let the soil cool. Once it cools, then it's ready to go into, or cools enough. Then I fill my trays or my cups, whatever it is that I'm putting my seeds in, if I'm potting up or if I'm just starting in trays, and then I plant. Now I use this same mixture whether I'm first sprouting the seeds, you know, the first round where I usually start them in the little seed trays, or if I'm potting up my plants into cups. I use this same mix because it works. I've seen videos or where other gardeners will use worm castings. I'll add some of that in, maybe a little compost. That stuff is definitely not gonna hurt your plants. It'll probably, you know, it adds organic matter, which of course has nutrients and things like that that are gonna help your seedlings. So feel free to do that, but you don't have to. Now you will have to fertilize your seedlings. I usually fertilize them once they have their first set of true leaves. I'll fertilize my seedlings for the first time. And I just use a regular water-soluble synthetic fertilizer. I don't really use organic ones inside the house because they pretty much all smell really bad, and I'm not here for that in my house. But you will have to fertilize them. I use a half strength. I think I still have some Miracle-Gro water-soluble general fertilizer, so I'll use that half strength. But actually, I'm gonna start using it more of like a quarter strength because I felt like the half strength might have been too strong. Use it more of a quarter strength. That way I don't have to stress too much about whether I fertilize them or not, etc. But you will need to use a fertilizer while your plants are growing. Until you get them out into your garden, you'll need to be sure to fertilize them regularly. I like to do it about every other week, but depending on the strength of your fertilizer, if you dilute it a whole bunch, then maybe you may be able to fertilize them at every watering. But that part is up to you, because you do have to remember that the peat moss vermiculite mixture doesn't have any organic matter in it, so it's not going to be providing nutrients to your plant. You will need to make sure that you supplement that with the fertilizer. But other than that, like, this mixture works great. I grew all of my seedlings for my garden, for my summer garden, my spring summer garden, and for my fall garden with that mixture, and my plants turned out great. I got great production from them. So it absolutely does work, and you're gonna save a lot of money for growing a lot of plants. All right, well, thank you for sticking around to the end of this video. I hope that you found it helpful. I hope that, you know, you learned something, and that if you're looking for a seed starting mix, you'll give this one a try. Of course, if you did enjoy this content, please go ahead and click the like button if you haven't done so before. Like I mentioned, that helps this video get out to more gardeners, helps me grow my channel, which I would greatly appreciate. And of course, subscribe to the channel, click the notification bell if you're interested in more gardening content from me. And until we meet again, have a great one.